Hello everyone, I assume that if you clicked on this video, it is because you want to improve your overall damage as a hunter, or you want to create a hunter. Well, firstly, I'll do an overview of the hunter and their specs. Bear in mind that in this video I will only be talking about the Marksmanship Specialisation, and I will only be going over PvE and not PvP. Marksmanship hunters are lone wolves, and if mastered, can output large amounts of damage on their foes in a very short amount of time. Firstly, I will be reviewing the best talents I believe fit PvE marksmanship hunters really well. For tier 1, I picked Post Haste. This ability allows a 60% movement speed increase after disengage has been used. This is a really good ability for getting out of AoE attacks. Narrow Escape, I would say, is more PvP based as it immobilizes enemies after you have disengaged. In PvE, I cannot see where this would come in handy, however I do believe that if you're attempting to solo, then this can work in your favour. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Chimera was a talent I used up until about level 85, however I replaced it with Post Haste due to the amount of movement I was made to do. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Chimera is very useful if you're using deterrence or disengage more often than 20 seconds or more than twice every 2 minutes. Secondly, moving on to talent tier 2, which is unlocked at level 30, I picked Binding Shot because it allows distance to come between the hunter and the target. It also allows you to get the edge in a fight due to the stunned opponent being allowed to take damage without cancelling the stun. Moving on, we have Wyvern Sting. This ability is very good if you are fighting multiple enemies at once and you need to stun one enemy, which is maybe doing the majority of the damage. However, due to the effect being cancelled, the target takes damage. I would recommend against this if you are in a party or raid with a warlock, simply due to their damage over time abilities. Intimidation, I would only recommend during the early levels, or if you pick specific talents later on, i.e. near end game. This talent would be very good for a Beastmaster who needs to take out multiple enemies quickly. Thirdly, Exhilaration. I have never used this talent, however due to its cooldown, I would highly recommend against this talent, as it will not be very effective against many opponents as it only heals 30% of your health. One scenario I could see useful is if you have a tank bet and wish to be able to solo or pull multiple creatures at once. Iron Hawk is the talent I would recommend using for a marksmanship hunter. 1. It is a passive ability and so you have no cooldown to consider, and 2. 10% is a lot of damage to not be taking. Finally, Spirit Bond, once again, is kind of useless near the end game, and therefore I would highly recommend not using this talent. Now, onto the 4th tier talent. Steady Focus, I would say, is kind of useless as there are not many times when you're going to be using Steady Shot twice in a row. I also believe that this talent can either improve or decrease your overall damage, depending on how you use it. Dire Beast is a very good aesthetic talent, but it is mostly a waste due to the beast being up for 15 seconds, and every time it attacks you gain 2 focus. It does not work out mathematically, as overall if the beast attacks once every second, that is a total of 30 focus, which if used, when depleted of focus, will not even get you Chimera Shot. Finally, Thrill of the Hunt I would say is the most effective talent, as despite it being a 6% chance, it is fairly often triggered, and it reduces the cost of aim shot by 20, which is amazing to say that it originally cost 50 focus. Now, onto tier 5. There are 2 very good talents on this, however it does depend on personal preference. Murder of Crows is a superb talent as its cooldown resets if the target is killed, making it very useful if you are fighting multiple enemies. Blink Strikes, once again, is a bad talent choice for a marksmanship hunter due to it using your pet, which as a marksman you'll not be seeing much of. Finally, Stampede, which is my current talent, despite it having a 5-minute cooldown, it has very high DPS, and I personally use it on bosses only due to the long cooldown. Out of this tier, I'd recommend trying both a Murder of Crows or Stampede and see which one you prefer or which one fits your playstyle more. Moving on to the penultimate tier now. Firstly, Glyphs I've never considered nor want to use due to its low damage output on all targets around and the 4 times amount multiplier still very low considering the amount of damage other talents in this tier do. I can only see this being useful in PvP due to the movement penalty it has. Next, we have Power Shot, which I have used, however it does annoy a lot of people due to its knockback effect. This is the most useful talent when soloing, as it allows you to knock back all enemies in a cone. And now, my favourite talent of this tier, Barrage. This talent, in my opinion, is the best due to high damage on all targets in front of you. The only disadvantage of this is that when in a raid or party, you can accidentally pull mobs which you didn't want to pull in the first place, so just be careful where you spray it. Finally, Tier 7. Exotic munitions I can only really recommend if you still want your pet, as it might not deal as much damage, but if you have had your pets since an early level, like I did, then you may want to keep them out. Focusing shot, just no. You should never need to generate 50 focus, ever. And finally, Lone Wolf, which gives you a 30% damage increase and allows you to buff your raid or party with anything really. This is the talent I currently use due to the amount of damage it's increased by and the buffs you can give to your fellow allies. In this section, I will be going over the glyphs I use on my hunter. However, you are always free to experiment, and I actually recommend this as my glyphs may not suit your playstyle. My major glyphs first are Glyph of Chimera Shot, Glyph of Camouflage, and Glyph of Mirrored Blades. I chose Glyph of Chimera Shot due to it restoring a fraction of your health when used, and during your rotation you will be using this ability a lot. Secondly, I chose Glyph of Mirrored Blades due to how useful it is and how it almost turns a defensive ability into an offensive ability, as it deflects a spell back to the caster. Finally, Glyph of Camouflage. I chose this as it allows you to be able to sneak past enemies almost as a rogue, however with reduced movement speed. Also, with enhanced camouflage, this ability is very good as it allows you to walk away from combat whilst also regenerating health. For your minor glyphs, I can really only recommend two during early levels, and those are Glyph of Feigned Death and Glyph of Fetch. These come in really handy as it saves both time and effort. The other minor glyphs are pretty rubbish and more for aesthetics, as they do not really affect how you play the hunter class. The only useful ones are not essentially for marksmanship hunters, and are for the other hunter specializations. The Marksmanship Hunter's rotation is very simple and does not require a lot of effort. Firstly, you want to start every battle with Chimera Shot, as this is the most damaging spell and has a 10-second cooldown. Secondly, you want to use Aim Shot until out of focus, and then use Steady Shot. If Thrill of the Hunt is triggered, then you want to keep spamming Aim Shot until the buff wears off. If by this time you do not have Thrill of the Hunt active, and you have enough focus, fire Chimera Shot. You should always be using Chimera Shot when it is off of cooldown. Not only can it strike 2 enemies, it is also extremely powerful. By this time in the fight, a Kill Shot proc should have appeared. Use it. Even if it will not kill your target, you can still use the ability another time after the initial shot. If you are against multiple enemies, say 3 or more, then continue with the normal rotation. However, use Barrage whenever you can in order to hit all enemies you are attacking. But do bear in mind that with Barrage you can hit enemies which you did not mean to hit, and so bear in mind the range at which Barrage can reach. Finally, if you are against more than 5 or 7 enemies, then simply switch Aim Shot with Multi-Shot. In about 3 hits with Multi-Shot, then Bombardment should have triggered, allowing the attack to deal 60% more damage and cost 25 less focus. This does not mean spam Multi-Shot in single target, as Chimera and Aim do a lot more damage in single target. Now, on to stat priority. As a Marksmanship Hunter, Agility is your main stat to keep up, as this will improve your overall damage of abilities. Next, you want to have Critical Strike as a main priority, as critical aim shots grant you 20 more focus, and Crit allows you to deal more damage, thus making you a more effective damage dealer. Mastery is your third priority when looking for gear due to sniper training, which is the mastery of a Marksmanship Hunter. This buff only activates after 5 seconds of standing still. If you do move, then you have 3 seconds until the buff either reactivates or debuffs, depending on whether you moved or stood still during this time. This mastery increases the amount of damage of your abilities, your critical strike damage, and your shot range, by however much percentage your mastery is at. So try to keep this one up. This section is mainly whilst leveling, however it is still very important as tanks will hate you for doing this. Turn your pet's growl off. It is very simple as well. You open your spellbook, go to tab saying pet, and then find the growl ability. Finally, right click. It should now not be glowing. By all means, keep growl on if you are soloing, but in a group, it is a player's job to maintain aggro, and not your pet's. Another thing one not to do is to spam barrage and power shot. Finally, do not do what a few hunters do, which is misdirect on a healer and then feign, as this will most likely get your entire raid or group wiped, and nobody wants that. You'll also likely get kicked from the guild or the group which you're raiding or dungeoning with. Lastly, thank you for watching this video. If I did miss anything out, then please leave a comment and I will try to correct it in another guide. Or if you still have a burning question that I have not answered, please put it down in the comments also and I will be more than willing to answer it. Maybe we can even learn something together. Anyway, please leave a like if this helped or tell me why it didn't in the comments. I hopefully will see you again in this world of Warcraft.